Without a schedule's parameters, we're prey to the witching of go by dare-driven compulsions surrounding us in the midst of the night's momentum. Then he took a breath. There's just too much excitement here for anyone's good. But this town has been places the world dreams of going. You understand, don't you, Mr. Trainer? Humanity already has a fortune. I said, yes, your utopian vow. Hank laughed. I said, between Her Majesty downtown and these midtown docks, I've figured out a little of what you want. But just to be clear, I can't swallow liberalism. Hank said, forget about it. Not much for group thought myself. I said, Hank, but he just nodded, we're leaving. And we crossed 12th Avenue and rode the sidewalk north, avoiding a certain aspect of the West Side Highway Memorial Speedway. We turned right, east on 30th Street, and stopped a good half block from 10th Avenue, near where that last length of the elevated High Line Railroad remains. Hank pointed at the second floor of a two-story warehouse space that spanned from the middle of the block to the corner of 30th and 11th, where it's been replaced today by a model mid-sized corner residential high-rise. We sat on our crossbars across the street from the two-story, and Hank said, my first Manhattan job in 1981 was working in this warehouse. I gave a capable interview with a gay man because friends had already challenged my rural biases as something not taken well in liberated New York City. My interviewer, Paul, I think, even thought I ran to Manhattan to get away from prejudice myself. I still feel guilty about that, and he obviously learned I wasn't gay. But we didn't talk about it, so whatever. I was flat broke and needed a job immediately. My supervisor, Leroy, opened my eyes to the bike messenger possibility after a walking courier delivered to this dark warehouse. I got excited, imagining the walker job would give me more time to read on the train, but my boss pointed out the close to real money was made on the bicycle. He had a dispatcher friend who promised him $100 a day if he'd just show up. $100 meant more then. The mantra had juice. A mantra will inflate into dust. Leroy also told me about our company's founder, Morris, who escaped before entering a death camp. For the rest of the war, he sold prophylactics in Portugal. Morris would catch me staring at the tattoo, but I couldn't bring myself to ask. Leroy told me to, but I wouldn't, or at least didn't. Almost a year later, I contrived to come back a day late from a week's Florida vacation without calling ahead. So Morris fired me because he was the boss. Said he laid me off for Leroy so I could collect unemployment. Leroy used to laugh at my take on the world. Kindness begets kindness, doesn't it? I received a swift kick to develop a new life. I said, incentive makes the world go round. Hank said, also spawns a share of madness. We crossed 10th Avenue and angled toward 30th Street's middle medium that splits the road so both avenues have a half-block entrance to Lincoln Tunnel. On 30th South Side is the block-sized U.S. Postal Service Processing Center. While where the median met 9th Avenue, at the base of a light pole, a homeless woman sat on all her belongings. Grumbling at no one, her smell indicated she'd seldom left the spot for any reason. Her red dress looked gray, and sunburned face was probably shattered from the effects of frostbite as well. But instead of passing, Hank hopped off his bike and pointed behind her where he laid his bike on the median. I sat on my crossbar, and first thing she did was grunt and leer at us for violating her space, apparently not recalling civility. Hank took one of the loaves, bungeed to his rack, and 2 slices before handing me the bag. He said, I'm hungry. How about you, Mr. Trainer? So to not have my name disclosed alone, I said, thanks, Mr. Greenway, then surprised myself finding whole wheat hit the spot. Hank signaled for the bread bag and before sitting slapped a park car to make sure there was no alarm. I imagined he presumed alarmed cars learned not to park there. then put the bread bag on the ground near her, and she grunted again. Hank said, "We're just resting. I used to work that way on 30th Street, pass twice a day and sometimes 4 for lunch, when not preoccupied reading on the single-step stoop across the street from the warehouse. One day a paddy wagon and squad cars pulled up right in front of me and blew my mind. Then they transferred prostitutes and I felt guilty for feeling relieved. It's America, right? Cops don't just pull up and cart you away. But for that brief moment, I was spooked. Over here, though, I always thought of you as this spot's mayor." She couldn't help smirk and reach for the bread, devoured after an initial small bite. Hank said, "Pleasant night. I love summer. I'd rather burn than freeze to death."